If the Avengers over the Marvel Universe have taught us anything, it is that they are very good at assembling. It seems to be a very strong gift of theirs to bring people together. And if I'm completely honest with you, I was spoilt for choice to find a clip for the beginning of this service. There are countless videos of people gathering together to be stronger. Community projects, standing up to racism, projects that need people to come together to overcome. An idea that for many of us we can get on board with, this idea of collective strength. A better example may be this one though, because superheroes are always difficult to get our heads around. If you have ever been part of a team or a game that needs teams, the inevitable selection process. You know the routine, 2 captains will stand there and they'll shout out names. One team will want Anne, another one will want Steve, and then David and Ninu, and the list will go on. And the list whittles down until there is one person left. I'm sure for many of you, you have no idea what the experience of being the last player picked is like. But the image is striking, isn't it? We can all get around this idea. Many of us would have had this experience at school. Teams are picked, and the process works for us because the first person picked by a team is inevitably viewed as the strongest asset for the game. Okay, slight kind of side point. Occasionally we just picked our friends because we thought it was a great laugh to all be together. But if you really wanted to win, and that was my baseline as a captain, friendship was out the window, I wanted to win, the first person picked was perceived to be the greatest asset to your team. And the list went on and you went down and you picked people and you picked people and picked people. The last person standing was perceived to be the weakest. The person who would bring the least benefit to the team. In some senses, they were the person who you feared would actually be a hindrance rather than a help to the process. Apologies to anyone who was frequently picked last. But we want the team to succeed. We want it to do well. So be it forming a superhero band to protect the world, or be it the perfect five-a-side team, we understand this idea of being part of a team, wanting to succeed by bringing the very best around us. The problem that I've come across more and more, and especially as I've spent time in this passage, is this mentality, this process is also how many of us view our Christian faith. We view our Christian faith through a very similar lens. If I have a new Bible, I will read it more. But if I have a battered old Bible, it will show that I've read it lots. If we were to play newer songs, then the worship would be better. But if we were to play the old hymns, God would show up more. We need a hyper-engaging prayer space, whilst I also need to go to the private place and pray alone. I should stand up when I sing and I should bow my head when I pray. It is exhausting to try and work out what we are meant to do to equip ourselves to encounter God. Please hear me. I'm not saying that I have a preference to any of those things. I'm not saying old songs are better or new songs are better, or that you can't have a new Bible or you can't pray this way or that. What I'm saying is when we start to make it about those things, when it becomes them that we are focusing on, we fall into a very dangerous trap. And it's a trap that for those of you who have been following our reading plan would have read about in Isaiah 31 this week. So I'm going to invite Jane to come, and she's going to read from Isaiah 31 for us this morning. Thank you, Jane.
Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses, who trust in the multitude of their chariots and in the great strength of their horsemen, but do not look to the Holy One of Israel or seek help from the Lord. Yet he too is wise and can bring disaster. He does not take back his words. He will rise up against that wicked nation, against those who help evildoers. But the Egyptians are mere mortals and not God. Their horses are flesh and not spirit. When the Lord stretches out his hand, those who help will stumble. Those who are helped will fall. All will perish together. This is what the Lord says to me. As a lion growls, a great lion, over its prey, and though a whole band of shepherds is called together against it, it is not frightened by their shouts or disturbed by their clamour. So the Lord Almighty will come down to do battle on Mount Zion and on its heights. Like birds hovering overhead, the Lord Almighty will shield Jerusalem. He will shield it and deliver it. He will pass over and will rescue it. Return, you Israelites, to the one you have so greatly revolted against. For in that day every one of you will reject the idols of silver and gold your sinful hands have made. Assyria will fall by no human sword. A sword not of mortals will devour them. They will flee before the sword, and their young men will be put to forced labor. Their stronghold will fall because of terror. At the sight of the battle standard, their commanders will panic, declares the Lord, whose fire is in Zion, whose furnace is in Jerusalem.
Thank you, Jane. A passage that fits with this little imagery we have. In other words, they have decided to pick Egypt, their chariots. They are assembling their army. I've said it before from the front, I've fallen in love with this passage. I tend to find that. But this is one of those rare passages where the comparison between where life once was back then and where I am today was almost painfully easy to bridge. There's times with the Bible where we have to do a lot of work to understand how what is being said applies to our lives. This, for me, was painfully easy. And I'm assuming, and I'm almost hoping, I'm not the only person that that's true for. It creates a question for us. How often do I go to other places for support? What is my Egypt? The image is that of people turning to Egypt to aid them in their battle. And as I said, I would be fairly comfortable to say that each of us has our own Egypts, those places that we go to for strength, for support, to help us through times of trouble. For some of us, we like to bulk up for the fight. Others will pool a deep knowledge base. Some get louder, while others will scheme in the background. For some, it's to feel the best way to overcome is to earn the most money. For others, it's to be more present at things. It will be different for each of us, but the truth is, for many of us, we will have Egypts that we retreat to. I didn't want anyone to feel attacked. It's quite a difficult message to put together, so I thought the easiest way would be to use myself as an example. One of the things God revealed to me in the week as I put this together. Now, that's not my legs, don't panic. But I love to go running. I massively enjoy it. I enjoy running in the area we live. It's stunning, getting to be outside, to listen to music. It's one of those things I've got a bizarre passion for. And Law will vouch for me, and I'm happy to admit it. I know how good it is for my mental health to just have that space. All of that is true. But I realized as I put this together the challenge that God was laying on my heart, because there are days when I will say to Laura, and I'll say it to Mark in the office, I just need to get out and clear my head. I need that space just to just download everything that's going on. And I had to come to an awkward realization for myself that I know on those days when that statement is said, running is my Egypt. Because I can promise you this, on those days, I've not gone to my Bible. I've not asked Mark or Laura to pray for me. I've not put worship music on. I have decided that in amongst the battle that I'm facing for my own well-being, the best thing I can do is turn to an external source, is to go running, is to clear my head that way. And I believe what we read in Isaiah 31 is exactly that. The people have decided there is a better option for victory than God. And for me, there are times when I will go and run, a good thing to do. Please hear me. So many of the things we do are not bad, but they are Egypts when they come before God. I guess with that example, people are beginning to understand that maybe there are some things in your life that you turn to before you turn to God, places you would go where there seems to be more strength. And it's this situation that Isaiah speaks into. A passage that helps us see in our everyday to-day lives that we will have Egypts, places we turn to, things we lean upon. And these are the words that we hear from Isaiah. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses, who trust in the multitude of their chariots. and in the great strength of their horsemen. But do not look to the Holy One of Israel or seek help from the Lord. It would appear that this tale is as old as time, this idea of leaning into things that are perceivably strong, this process of selecting a team based on those who will help you the most to overcome the challenge in front of you. For the Israelites, it was the Assyrian army. And it makes sense. Everything we know about the way the world works, it makes sense. If you are in a battle, then you want the strongest armies to support you. If you are facing a difficult situation, then you want to have all of the knowledge base you can have around you. As I said, I'm not saying that things are bad, but Isaiah makes it very clear, when they come before God, then we have a problem. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help. The words are strong. And the people will not be saved by chariots and armies. The problem isn't that the chariots and armies aren't strong. The problem isn't that running is bad. The problem is that it is not God. That's the problem that we face. It's an amazing thing for us to get our heads around, that what Isaiah is telling us, it doesn't matter what the people add. It doesn't matter who they draft in or any of those resources. None of that matters, because they are going to fall short, because it is not God. It raises a question for us that we looped into a couple of weeks ago. Do I believe that God can overcome the challenges and the situations that I face? Do I believe that or not? Because the answer is, if I do, and if I tell you I do, why do I spend so much time going to other things first? Why do other things take a priority? I found it an incredible introduction to this passage that we get that incredibly blunt woe to those moment. As I said, it's painfully relatable for many of us, but it is just the introduction. And Isaiah really gets going as it goes on. I'm not expecting you to read that. I will read it for you. This is what the Lord says to me: as a lion growls, a great lion over its prey, and though a whole band of shepherds is called together against it, it is not frightened by their shouts or disturbed by their clamor. So the Lord Almighty will come down to do battle on Mount Zion and on its heights. Like a bird hovering overhead, the Lord Almighty will shield Jerusalem. He will shield it and deliver it. He will pass over and he will rescue it. Return, you Israelites, to the one you have so greatly revolted against. If that introduction is difficult for us to swallow, for us to come to terms with, that we will each have things in our lives that we go to before God, this is the encouragement of why that is not a good idea. We do not need other things. We do not need to substitute God out to allow other things in. Isaiah reminds us the Lord Almighty will come down and do battle for us and for the people. God will come like a mighty lion to protect Jerusalem. Isaiah is pretty much saying you can bring everything man-made to the table. You can go to the future and you can get the weaponry of the future and bring it against this army, and still the Assyrians will prevail, because the issue is not strength. The issue is, where does God sit in the process? Where does God sit in the process for you? This image of the shepherds helpless against the strength of a mighty lion in its prime. God in Isaiah is positioned as this mighty lion. The Assyrians cannot frighten him. They will not overcome him. Again, we just have to take a moment to put this into context. As we read it, it's very comfortable, sat in a church on a Sunday morning when the sun is shining in a quiet little valley. But this is being spoken to a people who are terrified for their lives. People who are petrified at the concept of being annihilated and wiped out from the history of the earth. This is a heavily weighted statement, and the weight of it needs to be felt by us. Isaiah is saying to them, I get that you want to survive, and I get that your head is telling you, bring the strength of man to the table. But God is saying, trust me. Trust me. Trust me with your very lives, with your very future. And we land squarely once again as a modern reader with a collection of truths that we have to accept. God is bigger than the mountains that you face. God is bigger than the mountains you face. Whether you feel like that or not, he is. God is bigger than the adversity you face. God is bigger than the armies you face. He's bigger than the addictions you face, than the battles you face, the shame you face, the struggles you face. The truth is, God is bigger. And Isaiah is painting for the people then and for us now a truth that God is bigger. There are so many good things that we can do, so many good practices. Please hear me. I am not saying to throw out all of those things. But I am saying this, those practices alone will not save you. Only God will. Only God saves. We need to stop placing our Egypts, our running, our practices over God and instead be a people that return to him. Isaiah calls the people to return to the one big O, returning to God. That's his call to them. Return to him. You who have revolted against him by turning to other things, come back to your source of strength. I wonder as you consider, what is it that you depend on more than God? What is it that you lean into more than God to help you get through the battles you face? Some of them are good things. Some of them are less so. But what is it that you know for your life and the circumstances you face that you go to before you go to God? Is God this morning calling you to return to the one? Is it a wake-up call that we have become dependent on something other than God? And Isaiah isn't done. He goes on to say, for in the days every one of you will reject the idols of silver and gold your sinful hands have made. Assyria will fall, but by no human sword. A sword not of mortals will devour them. They will flee before the sword, and their young men will be put to forced labor. The strongholds will fall because of terror. At the sight of the battle standard, their commanders will panic, declares the Lord, whose fire is in Zion, whose furnace is in Jerusalem. This invitation to reject their idols, to put down the things that they have placed before God, to turn from their plans to go to Egypt. Please hear what's being said in this. This is grace. To return freely. There's no cost. They don't have to do anything to return. This is an open invitation to put down the things that they've depended on and return to God. In so many ways, this short moment encapsulates the message of the gospel. It is okay to admit you have made mistakes. But will you return to God once you've admitted them? Or will you continue to go back to those habits and those places? There is no expectation on them to pay anything to return, but to simply come back to God. Do we need to return to God this morning? Depending wholly on him, depending on him that Assyria will fall. And Isaiah is very clear, it will not fall because of the Egyptian chariots. I will not overcome those battles because I've trained harder, or I've read more, or I've learned lots, or I've earned money. For many of us, the battles we face, the mountains that are before us, the forests that we referred to a few weeks ago, can be overcome. But not by the sword, but by putting God front and center, to turn to him first and always. Please hear me again. I want this to be so clear. I am not saying the things that we do are necessarily bad. I'm just saying, are we honest enough with ourselves to say they have replaced God being our first port of call? Isaiah moves into another image. He moves from the lion amongst shepherds to the almighty warrior wielding a sword that is not human but supernatural. And this paints an incredible picture for us, and one I want us to just think about as we come to a close. This whole passage began with the people considering recruiting the Egyptians to help them overcome the Assyrians. That's how this began. And Isaiah prophesies that only through God will they overcome the Assyrians. No matter how good and how strong, how coordinated their man-made effort is, the only way to overcome is through God. And in so many ways, we dismiss a lot of the prophecies of the Bible because they are that, prophecies. Isaiah has painted a picture for us of what could be. And yet we have the privilege of knowing what was as a result of these words. In 2 Kings, we read this account. 2 Kings 19. Therefore, this is what the Lord says concerning the king of Assyria. He will not enter this city or shoot an arrow here. He will not come before it with shield or build a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came, he will return. He will not enter this city, declares the Lord. I will defend this city and save it for my sake and for the sake of David, my servant. That night, the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 of the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. That night, the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 of the Assyrian camp. I know we get uncomfortable with some of this, and I understand that, but we cannot shy away from the significance of what we read here. The people were looking to form an army that would protect them against the Assyrians, and Isaiah warns them. Doesn't matter what army you have. Doesn't matter what you add by man-made structures. If you do not turn to God and put your whole trust in him, then you will not overcome the Assyrians. And then in Kings, we read this passage. The people have returned to God. And it is God who will protect them, who will help them to overcome. The people were desperate for the military power of Egypt, this perceived superpower in battle. Isaiah warns them that it will not be enough. I wonder whether for us we need to hear that truth and see that truth for our own lives. We need to stop turning to our Egypts and turn back to God, to trust him at his word, to trust him at his word enough to find ourselves in those situations where we need him to come through. I want to put it into comparison as I close. I want us to really get this because I think Isaiah gives us one of the most incredible paintings and pictures of just how much we can lean into God. The people were looking to Egypt to protect them from an army. The superpower that was Egypt had a 3,000-year military campaign. In one night, an angel of the Lord killed 185,000 Assyrians. In the 3,000-year military campaign the Egyptians had with their horses and their swords and their chariots, it's estimated that they killed between 100 and 300,000. In one night, versus 3,000 years, God showed his people how much they can rely on him, how much stronger he is than any man-made effort that we can come up with. As I said, we shy away from these numbers. We don't like the concept of bloodshed. I'm not a big fan of it myself, but oh my gosh, they had 3,000 years on God. And the best estimation is they maybe managed 100,000 more kills. It's not a nice metric, I get that. But it tells me the truth that we read in Isaiah, that we can put the very best team together. We can call on Iron Man and Ant-Man and all the rest of them. But if we do not put God first, we will fall short. Are we a people who lean on our best understandings, on our own man-made efforts, or will we be a people who turn to the Lord and trust in him alone? Are there areas of your life where you know you have put other things above God? Fearful, understandably fearful, that if you don't make plans and provisions, then things will fail. Is God this morning challenging you to come to him first, to lay it all down before him and lean into his love for you?